So again, greetings everybody. It's Monday, it's the Deer Park, it's the Buddha Center. Let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. I believe, oh maybe not, okay. So let's start out again like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. Wherever you are behind your avatar, please get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, again, focus on the sound of the bell. Really get that deep listening going. Really get that focus going so you can absorb some Dharma today. Chances are you'll get distracted when it happens. Just gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. Be that short pause. I'll do the 3 recitations and then on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. Make sure I missed anybody. Nope. All right. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. So again, greetings everybody. Good to see you. Today, I'm going to talk about individual Dharma. There we go. So this starts out with the idea of individualism, if you will. And a way must be found to skillfully harness the power of the individualistic view, intents, and actions that most Westerners bring to their journey on the Noble Path. This is some baggage that most of us Westerners carry with us when we begin that journey on the Noble Path. Now, in each individual, there is a reservoir of good things like imagination and skills and gifts and compassion, and of course that Buddha element, that Buddha nature that resides in each one of us. And these are reservoirs that can be tapped, and they can be tapped for the benefit of everybody, right? The self and everybody else. Thing is, though, this individualistic attitude tends to have people begin with this question. What's in it for me if I put in the effort? If I choose this whole noble path thing and, there's the work to be done, the effort to be put into it, the study, the practice, and all that, well, what's in it for me? What does Buddhist philosophy and practice offer that will improve my situation? Now, early in practice, we must be guided through a gradual realization that while we are each unique expressions of the universe, there'll never be anybody like us, there hasn't been before, there isn't now, and that sometimes we may think that our suffering is unique because it will feel that way. We have to come to the realization that we all experience suffering. And in that, we are not unique in the universe. That starts to pare that little bit of individualism away, just a little bit. So awareness of the effects of practitioners' intent and action beyond themselves has got to be developed and has got to be nurtured. So the realization that whatever thought or action that a person has will have causal consequences, and we want them to be wholesome causal consequences. These consequences, unwholesome and wholesome though, arise in part dependent on whether there is a selfish or selfless motivation driving whatever action is taken. So is it selfish intent or is it selfless intent? There are practitioners and there are teachers and there are scholars today that view the Judeo-Christian belief system as the cultural aspect of the West that Buddhism is really going to have to come to terms with. Because, here in the West, and I include the Americas and Europe too, it's the dominant religious and social framework. And I have to say, especially in America, that's certainly what it seems like. But there is this long prevailing psychological phenomena that's endemic to the majority of Americans. And this is regardless of whatever religious or secular identity, spiritual identity that a person has for themselves. And that's individualism. So we've got to find skillful means of transforming this perceptions of what's in it for me, change it from what's in it for me to what's in it for all beings. And this is a major challenge for Western Buddhists to tackle. Because we were born with this whole idea of individualism. Doing what's right for you. We must first come to an understanding of individualism as a moral view and a social view that's common in the West. People who hold this worldview believe that the interests, the wants and needs of the individual should come before that of any government or group. And if we look at ourselves, we can see we all have this idea to some degree. These folks, these very individualistic folks resist all attempts by society or groups to interfere with or limit their individual thoughts and actions. The results of their individual actions might have some benefit to others, but it's not really their intent. That wasn't what they set out to do. And then, if those individual actions lead to harmful results, many of these folks just choose to not take responsibility and just kind of walk away from it. It wasn't me. So it will take skillful means of both teaching and listening and being examples to others, as well as skillful redescriptions of Buddhist philosophy and practice to transform this individualism to some sort of social awareness. So there's a sutta. It's called the Raga Vinaya Sutta. It's the subduing of passions is how they translate that one. And in there, the Buddha describes 4 different kinds of individuals. There's the one that practices for their own benefit, one who practices only for the benefit of others, one who practices neither for their own benefit or the benefit of others, and one who practices for both their own benefit and that of others. So the tendency in the West, this tendency toward individualism, that's kind of the first one. The one who practices only for their own benefit. That tendency is often what brings a Westerner, though, to the practice of Buddhism. Because there's some want or some need that they hope Buddhism can provide for them. The Buddha was clear that a Buddhist path does begin with the development of the individual. We talk about this a lot. Keep reminding ourselves, it does start with us. But he was equally clear, again, that it can't end there. Or it shouldn't end there. Skillful means must be found so we can lead ourselves along a path to that 4th type of individual, one who practices for the benefit of self and of others. I want to take a step back to one of those selves that practices. It's the one who practices neither for their own benefit or the benefit of others. This is like somebody that claims to be something but really doesn't do any of the work. It's all a virtue claim. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's how to spot that particular individual of the 4. Now there's another lesson. This comes from a different sutta called the Lekha Sutta, known as Inscriptions. And it offers a glimpse of the path of practicing for the benefit of self and others. It describes 3 types of individuals based on their perceptions of their ability to transform, making change. There is the individual that is like an inscription on rock, one who is like an inscription in soil, and one like an inscription in water. And each of these can be viewed as a metaphor for the stages of body-mind as we go through Buddhist practice. An individualistic worldview combines the first type of person in each sutta. They will practice only for their own benefit, believing that, just like an inscription in rock, that their worldview is permanent. They hold to the what's in it for me mode of thinking and acting. And initially, Buddhist practice can seem to verify this view to them. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to focus on me. That's the idea. Emphasis, though, is on personal transformation that begins with how that practice can improve the state of the individual body-mind. One learns to sit in meditation, but we do it among the Sangha, usually. Yet the bulk of the practice that we actually do is done at home. So it feels individual, right? Because you're doing it individually so much of the time. And one learns that emotions and habitual reactivities that plague the body-mind are transient phenomena. They come and go. And this is a view that the individual must come to realize. For a what's in it for me state of body-mind, the serenity and the equanimity and the sense of personal accomplishment, that's enough for them. That's just what they were looking for. So it's kind of written in stone, right? They see it as something permanent. Now, Siddhartha began his journey of personal spiritual transformation with the goal of understanding the forms of suffering he witnessed but had never experienced. And prior to his achieving awareness of the plight of human beings, he was like that inscription in stone. In accordance with Hindu beliefs, his personal and social actions were taken that would positively affect his rebirth, that they would do good for him. Good actions done only for that individual. And when he chose to leave his wife and child behind to seek the answers that he was looking for, he did that in the beginning for his own benefit. I want to know. Then those next two types of individuals, they present a danger to the body-mind, and the view of an inscription in soil is a skillful way of getting beyond the danger that this type of thinking can present to the body-mind. The view and action of one who practices only for the benefit of others misses entirely a critical aspect of Buddhism. Now notice I'm saying here, practices only for the benefit of others. The Buddha teaches that only with equanimity of focus on both ourselves and others can the value of the Dharma be effectively experienced. Can it really mean something? The person who practices neither for their own benefit or the benefit of others is going through the motions of being, for example, a Buddhist, without any intent to engage the Dharma either in themselves or in the world around them. Quick little example. I have a nephew who he was in the military for a while. And when he first went into the military and he found out that if he labeled himself a Buddhist on the what religion are you, that there were a lot of the stuff on Sunday that he would get out of having to do. So he just called himself a Buddha on the form, a Buddhist on the form. So again, it allows him to avoid particular requirements that were put on people of other faiths. And these views, and then taking action that's appropriate as a result. They experience the current of the Dharma from an individualistic intent, wanting to do something good for themselves, but then they let it flow to social intent. And then they let it flow around the obstruction of neither self or social intent, to the realization that the Dharma, when we apply it equally to self and other, has the greatest value in the promotion of human flourishing. So that inscription on water just allows you to move from one point to the next and be dynamic. Siddhartha transformed from one who practiced for their own benefit to one who practiced for the benefit of self and others. He awakened, and he stood up under the branches of the Bodhi tree, and it is said that he doubted his ability to teach others this middle path that he had come to realize. And he realized it could relieve the suffering of human beings, but he hesitated. I don't know if I can do this. Well, at that point, he was still practicing for himself. But in that next moment, he made the decision to try. And in that moment, transformed into one who would practice for self and others. So Siddhartha too went from stone to soil to water, inscribed from one to the other, or letting that inscription be solid in stone, a little less so in soil, and then to be washed away in the stream. It takes skillful means then to guide an individualistic Westerner along a path that not only accepts the benefit of the Dharma to the individual, but encourages it. It's hard to say this isn't individualistic at that point, because this is the beginning. But we've got to get to the realization that practice of the Dharma is most valuable when equally engaged in the service of the individual and of the society. And that's what happens as practice truly matures. This skillful means cannot just be the efforts and mentoring of a teacher. It must also arise in the thoughts and actions of the practitioner. To develop a mature Buddhist practice, it takes both external and internal skillful means. You have to find your own skillful means, and you have to look outside of yourself for other skillful means that are offered to you. Or you're going to find yourself inscribed in rock, and you're going to fail to engage the opportunities of soil and water that we can use as Buddhists to grow wholesome dispositions and habits. So there's a path. There's a path from the individual to, let's call it, the social. That tends to be a term used a lot, social engagement in Buddhism. And that's the path that we're all on. You know, some of us are at the beginning, some of us are in the middle, but we're all on that path. It's a good path. Just takes some work. Sometimes there's some elevation we got to get up. Sometimes the way is pretty smooth. But we're all on that path to go from thinking of ourselves just as an individual to seeing ourselves as both individual and society. All right.